Hey folks, Fernando doing another video for the Modern Survivalist. In this specific video, I'd like to cover the topic of fuel storage. Now, these videos are intended to prepare people for the short-term situation that you're likely to face in the United States after the elections, with the possibility of some civil unrest, some problems in certain areas. It is pretty much a good chance of that happening, so a little bit of preparation will go a long way. Part of that preparation is all the topic we've been covering. Now, one of the things I at least haven't mentioned yet is the idea of fuel storage. Now, some people store a huge amount of fuel because of heating, because of generators. Specifically in this case, I'd like to talk about the fuel you need for your vehicle when bugging out. Now, you bug out when you have a specific idea of where you're going. Just bugging out into the unknown is not a plan at all. Bugging out means you know where you're going, and you're going from point A to point B. Point B being your safe location. You don't need anything fancy. It may be a friend's house, some family, relative of yours that you've reached a common agreement, or just you can trust. Make sure you talk about all of these things, because many times people assume you can go somewhere and then you end up having an unpleasant surprise. So be careful about that. Talk ahead of time with with these folks, and even better, have some preparations made. Have some stuff stored there just in case. Now, in this case, talking about fuel storage, the idea is you want to know how much distance you have to cover when going from point A to point B. Make a few test drives, actually know how much you need, and then have that fuel stored plus a 20% just in case there's a detour or there's problems, more traffic than expected, whatever. So the distance to be covered plus 20%, give or take, so that you have a bit of a margin there. And you're going to be storing that in some of these jerry cans, metal ones. Avoid plastic, it's just not a good idea. Metal jerry cans are the best things to store fuel. Make sure it's topped up to the very edge, so that you have as little air as possible in there. That's going to be storing it a lot better. You may want to add a little bit of Stabil depending on the fuel you're using and how often you're rotating it. I use diesel, and I think it's a great way to go. It's simply more efficient. You cover more miles for the same amount of fuel. You have more torque if it's used as a daily driver, or if you have if you have a need for that torque when navigating through a little bit of a more complicated terrain, snow, mud, whatever. And it is also safer in terms of accidents and fire hazards, either in the vehicle after an accident or when stored in your home. We all remember the incident with Paul Walker, the actor of Fast and Furious, and how he died in a ball of flame. That car caught fire, and yeah, sure, that was a celebrity, but it happens rather often to people in general. Just, gasoline explodes. It's really not all that safe compared to diesel. Diesel, you can throw a lit match in that thing. It will not burn. You need an actual wick for diesel to burn. You can soak all of this with diesel, throw a lit candle or a match, it will not ignite. You need a wick. You need something to get it started. So it's a lot safer, and it stores a lot better. So in something like this, you can keep it in a metal can. A year later, you will not have a problem with diesel at all. It just stores for a lot more years than gasoline. Either way, you may or may not want to be using Stabil, especially if it's gasoline. I would consider using some form of Stabil fuel stabilizer, so as to make sure it just holds on better throughout time. But basically, that's the concept. Look, when things go wrong, people end up going to the gas station, everyone at the same time, and you just don't want to do that. If you have to leave because either riots are getting out of hand, because violence, because there's something very much wrong, and maybe you already have a plan of, okay, when this escalates, we're heading this way. Fantastic, but you need fuel for that. I'm not talking about feeding a generator or heating. I'm talking about just fuel for your vehicle and getting where you already have a plan in place. Don't just think about hitting the gas stations along the way. Those may be unavailable, empty, closed, or burned down. We've seen gas stations getting torched, so you have to take all of that into account and process it and make the best solution for you. The ones I like are these. These are made in Latvia. These are very good. Make sure that seal where it's welded, that it's recessed and it's not making contact with the floor. I've seen some of those. Those are a little bit cheaper, but they're not good because that seal where it's welded, making contact, it's not a good idea to have that, the weld just putting pressure there, just cheaper cans and not that good. It needs to be recessed and not making contact. And put in a couple of sticks like that so as to not have humidity, corrosion, and rust maybe building up underneath and you not even noticing it. And again, yes, rotating it every once in a while, that's just a good idea. How much fuel will depend on your vehicle as well. If you have a big, huge truck, you'll need a lot more fuel. If you have a more of a mid-sized vehicle, it's going to be more efficient and such. But it will depend on your plan, your strategy, what kind of needs you have. Maybe you need to transport a lot of people, a lot of supplies from your point A to your point B, so you'll need to store more fuel. Will depend on your plan, how far you're going. My suggestion is making these preparations, have several potential spots as to go to in case one of those is compromised or not available. Again, you don't need anything fancy. You don't need $1 million bunker. You don't need a missile silo. You just need a friend, someone who which you reach a common agreement of. Something goes wrong, you can come here. If something goes on here, I can go to your place. That's basically it. And have that type of trust. Friends, family, it's usually going to be. If you have some other plan of beach house or maybe a place where property is likely to be available for renting, for maybe even a camping spot, and you have a travel trailer or one of these things. It's all part of the plan. Whatever plan it is, have one. Just don't sit wherever it is you are. And I'm talking about doing this in spite of your main idea, your main course of action being staying where you are, because that may entirely be the case. You're not planning on leaving anywhere. That's just not something you're looking to do. That doesn't change anything. You still need a plan B in case whatever went wrong actually ends up happening and you don't have a plan. That's just not wise. In spite of your plan being staying put in whatever place you are in your community, have plan B just in case. That's actually what preparedness is all about. Folks, remember that my books are available in Amazon. Bugging Out and Relocating would be more specific to this type of talk. Street Survival Skills is the one I would recommend for the kind of civil unrest you're likely to see, and the Modern Survival Manual, a little bit more encompassing actual economic collapse, at least from my experience in Argentina. Have an awesome day, folks. See you on the next video. Take care.